The first time I saw Carol Henderson standing at my property line, I knew she was trouble. Her perfectly pressed pantsuit seemed absurd against the backdrop of my rural land, and the way she clutched her leather portfolio like a weapon set every alarm bell ringing. "Mr. Dawson," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I'm the new president of the Riverside Springs HOA. We need to discuss your situation." I wiped the grease from my hands. I'd been working on the dam spillway gate, and try to keep my expression neutral. "There's no situation, Carol. My property isn't part of your HOA. Never has been." Her smile tightened. "That's where you're mistaken. When the neighborhood was established 15 years ago, the boundaries were redrawn. Your land falls within our jurisdiction now." "I've owned this land for 30 years, I said, feeling heat creep up my neck. "I was here before your McMansions, before your tennis courts, and definitely before your HOA. "Nevertheless," she continued, ignoring my protest, "you owe approximately $47,000 in back fees and dues. Additionally, your structure violates our community aesthetic standards." I followed her gaze to the dam. It wasn't pretty, I'd give her that. But it was functional, well-maintained, and most importantly, it held back nearly 6 million gallons of water from the reservoir I'd built on my property. The same reservoir that fed the creek running through her precious neighborhood downstream. "That dam has been here for 25 years, I said slowly. "It's registered with the county. It's inspected annually. And it's not going anywhere." Carol's expression hardened. "We'll see about that. You have 30 days to pay your fees and submit an application for a variance, or we'll take legal action." She turned on her heel, her stilettos somehow finding purchase on the rocky ground, and marched back to her Mercedes. The next 3 weeks were a nightmare of certified letters, legal threats, and HOA board meetings where I wasn't allowed to speak. My lawyer, Jim Patterson, a good man who'd handled my property affairs for decades, looked increasingly worried each time we met. "They're serious, Tom," he said, spreading documents across his desk. They found some obscure county rezoning from 2008 that technically could put your land under HOA jurisdiction. It's a stretch, but they've got money for lawyers. Can they really make me tear down the dam? Jim hesitated. "They're claiming it's a safety hazard and an eyesore. Combined with the fee dispute, they might convince a judge to order modifications." Modifications. I laughed bitterly. That dam is the only thing keeping the spring runoff from flooding their basements every year. They have no idea what they're dealing with. Have you explained that to them? Carol won't listen. None of them will. The morning they came, I was in town picking up supplies. My neighbor, old Pete Morrison, called me frantically. "Tom, you need to get back here. There's a construction crew at your dam." I broke every speed limit getting home. When I pulled up, my worst nightmare was unfolding before my eyes. A excavator was positioned at the dam's base, its massive arm raised. Carol stood nearby with 2 other HOA board members and a man in a hard hat, who I assumed was the contractor. Behind them, a sheriff's deputy shifted uncomfortably. "Stop," I shouted, jumping out of my truck. "You can't do this." Carol held up a document. "Court order, Mr. Dawson. Signed this morning. The dam is being removed as a public nuisance." "That's not a court order," I said, my hand shaking. "You need engineering surveys, environmental impact studies. This takes months of planning. You can't just tear it down." The contractor spoke up. "Ma'am," he's right. "This isn't standard demo procedure. We should—" "You're being paid to follow orders," Carol snapped. "The HOA board has voted, and we have legal authority. Proceed." I turned to the deputy. "Officer, please. That dam is holding back millions of gallons. If they breach it without proper drainage, the whole valley will flood." The deputy looked uncertain. I'm just here to keep the peace, sir. If you interfere, I'll have to arrest you. I tried calling Jim, but it went to voicemail. I tried the county engineer's office. Closed for lunch. I stood there helpless as the excavator's arm swung toward the dam's face. At least let me open the spillway gates. I shouted, "Let the water drain slowly." "We don't have time for your delays," Carol said. "This is happening now." The first bucket of the excavator bit into the concrete, then another. I could see the contractor getting nervous as water began seeping through the cracks. "Ma'am, we should stop," he said. "This is—" The dam face crumbled. Everything happened in horrifying slow motion. The breach widened from a crack to a hole to a complete collapse in less than 30 seconds. 6 million gallons of water, held back for a quarter century, found its freedom. The roar was deafening. "Run!" I screamed. We scattered. The excavator operator abandoned his machine just before the wall of water slammed into it, flipping the multi-ton vehicle like a toy. Carol's Mercedes disappeared in the initial surge. We scrambled up the hillside as the water devoured my property, taking my workshop, my tools, everything I owned. But it didn't stop there. The wall of water followed the natural creek bed, straight through the heart of Riverside Springs HOA. From the hillside, we watched the disaster unfold. The water hit the first row of houses within 2 minutes. Basement windows exploded. Garage doors buckled. Cars floated down streets that had become rivers. Carol's face had gone white. "Oh my God!" "I tried to warn you," I said quietly. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance. Helicopters appeared overhead within 15 minutes. The contractor was on his phone, shouting at someone about evacuation procedures. The flooding continued for 3 hours as the reservoir emptied. By the time it stopped, 47 homes had major water damage. The HOA clubhouse was destroyed. The tennis courts were buried under 3 feet of mud. 2 cars had been swept into the lake at the end of the valley. Miraculously, no one was killed, but 17 people were hospitalized. The aftermath was brutal for Carol and the HOA board, not me. The investigation revealed everything. The fraudulent court order that was actually just an HOA resolution, the ignored engineering warnings from the contractor, the complete disregard for safety protocols. Carol and 3 other board members faced criminal charges for reckless endangerment and destruction of property. The HOA's insurance refused to cover the damage, citing willful negligence. Homeowners sued the HOA, the board members, and each other. The neighborhood descended into legal chaos. As for me, the county declared that my property had never been under HOA jurisdiction. The 2008 rezoning Carol cited had been overturned years ago. She'd simply used outdated documents. I was awarded damages, though collecting from the now bankrupt HOA would take years. 6 months later, I stood at the same property line where Carol had first confronted me. The neighborhood below was a construction zone. Some families had rebuilt. Others had abandoned their homes entirely. The HOA had dissolved. Jim Patterson stood beside me. "The county wants you to rebuild the dam. They fast-tracked all the permits.